The stars had always been silent, distant watchers of Earth. They glimmered like tiny fires in the black velvet of space, unchanging, indifferent. To humanity, they had always been a source of wonder, a canvas of possibility. But lately, those stars felt heavy. Something had shifted. Across the galaxy, whispers had begun to travel faster than light, carried by alien networks and cosmic signals. These whispers were not neutral. They were mocking, cruel, and dismissive. Earth, they said, was nothing. Helpless. Weak. A tiny blue dot struggling to survive in a universe that did not notice it. Commander Lyra Kane stared at the holographic projection hovering above the command table in the United Earth Council chamber. The message had come from the Zetherians, a race that had long dominated the edges of human-known space. Their leader, a being of shimmering crystal and jagged edges, had spoken slowly, deliberately, as if addressing a child. His voice, translated through their networks, carried a cold, calculating humor. "You are insects playing at gods. Stay on your rock, and we will not crush you." The words were meant to wound, to make humanity bow, to make them afraid. But for Lyra, they lit a fire instead. The council chamber was silent. Not one voice dared speak immediately, as though the enormity of the insult had frozen them. Then, Lyra's fingers clenched against the metal edge of the table, and she spoke softly. But her words cut through the tension like a blade. "They do not know us," she said. "They do not understand courage. They do not understand determination. And they will learn." Her words hung in the air, echoing against the high ceilings of the council chamber. For a moment, the room remained still, heavy with disbelief. How could such small beings, the humans, ever challenge the galaxy's strongest? Yet something in Lyra's eyes, in the quiet confidence of her stance, spoke of something the aliens could never measure: humanity's resilience. The council slowly began to murmur, their voices overlapping like soft waves. Scientists, engineers, pilots, diplomats, all had felt the sting of mockery, but they also felt a surge of something stronger: pride. For centuries, humans had survived when others would have perished. They had endured ice ages, plagues, wars, and famine. They had risen again and again, stubborn as weeds breaking through concrete. And now, when the galaxy laughed at them, that stubbornness would show itself once more. Lyra turned to the massive star map behind the council, a holographic projection of the galaxy. Lights blinked in clusters, indicating known alien territories, trade routes, and conflict zones. Among them, the Zetherian space glowed ominously, a jagged expanse of enemy power. And yet, even in the face of such overwhelming odds, humans were not afraid. They had never been afraid. Fear had always been a tool, a motivator, a spark to fuel action rather than paralysis. Outside the council chamber, on the streets of Earth, the people sensed a shift too. Children playing in the parks paused to look up at the sky, unaware of the cosmic politics above their heads. Workers in cities far below the clouds glanced at the horizon as if the very stars were calling them. Farmers tilled soil under the early sunlight, feeling the weight of unseen eyes, yet confident that Earth would endure. Humanity had always known hardship, and in hardship, it had always thrived. In the human fleet's secret facilities, engineers and builders labored day and night. Sparks flew as welding machines shaped metal into sleek, agile ships. Massive engines were assembled and tested, their hum a song of potential energy waiting to be released. Pilots ran simulations that tested every scenario the aliens might throw at them, and scientists worked tirelessly to refine weapons, shields, and tactics. Every weakness was analyzed, every advantage maximized. The aliens might have believed Earth was helpless, but these preparations proved otherwise. Lyra walked among the engineers one evening, her boots echoing softly against the metal floor. "You see this?" she said. gesturing to a half-completed cruiser. This is not just a ship. It is a promise. A promise that we will not be dismissed, that our place in the galaxy is earned, not given. Every bolt, every panel, every system is proof that we are alive, that we are determined, that we are human. A young engineer, barely 20, looked up from the console. His hands were smudged with oil, eyes wide with awe. "Commander," he whispered, "do you really think we can win? Against them?" Lyra smiled, a small curve that did not reach her eyes, because she felt the weight of truth pressing upon her. "We do not need to win by their rules," she said. "We win by ours. We survive, we fight, and we endure. That is enough." In the council chamber, debates raged. Some argued for diplomacy, for avoidance, for hiding in the shadows of the galaxy. But Lyra and her closest advisors knew the truth. Diplomacy had its place, but not when the galaxy openly mocked your existence. To survive, to claim humanity's rightful place, they would have to show strength, not with arrogance, not with cruelty, but with undeniable action. The human fleet, though small compared to the sprawling armadas of alien powers, was unlike any fleet the galaxy had ever seen. It was forged not just from steel and energy, but from human ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination. Every ship carried the spirit of those who had labored on it. Every pilot carried the hopes of billions. And at the helm, humans trusted each other completely, a bond that alien civilizations, with their rigid hierarchies and cold calculations, could never understand. Night fell on Earth, the cities lighting up like constellations of their own. From orbit, satellites and early warning systems scanned the skies for signs of alien movement, but none was detected. The galaxy had yet to grasp the storm it had invited. Lyra looked out from the observation deck of the command ship under construction. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, sharp features, eyes bright with determination, and a heart that refused to bow. "Let them mock us," she whispered to herself. "Let them laugh. When we move, the galaxy will know that every word of ridicule was their mistake, and so Earth waited, not in fear but in preparation, not in despair but in hope. Across the planet, humans moved with quiet determination, united in a way that transcended politics, nations, and boundaries. They were small, yes, fragile, perhaps, but they were alive. They were ready. And the galaxy, vast and indifferent as it seemed, would soon learn that underestimating humanity was the gravest error one could make. The stars remained silent watchers, distant and cold. Yet somewhere in the endless void, the first ripple of change began to stir. The whisper that once mocked Earth would soon be replaced by awe. The galaxy would see what humanity had always known, that even in the face of impossibility, Earth would rise and humans would fight, not because they had to, but because they could. And in that quiet determination, the fire of the human spirit began to glow brighter than any star. Far beyond Earth, in the dark reaches of space, humanity's preparations were coming to life. The orbital shipyards were alive with movement, a constant rhythm of creation. Massive construction arms swung through the void, welding, assembling, and shaping the human fleet. Sparks danced against the black canvas of space like tiny fireworks, and the hum of fusion engines reverberated through the hulls of ships, a song of power waiting to be unleashed. Every ship, every vessel, every system was built with purpose. Every detail mattered. Admiral Rakesh Verma walked along the main deck of the flagship Hopebringer. The vast metal corridors were alive with engineers, technicians, and crew members working tirelessly. He moved with a calm presence, hands clasped behind his back, observing the controlled chaos around him. "This is more than just preparation," he said quietly to himself. This is the heart of humanity, proving it will not be dismissed. Young pilots darted through training rooms, immersed in virtual simulations that tested their reflexes, endurance, and decision-making. They faced scenarios designed to push them beyond fear and beyond expectation. Each simulation was a lesson in strategy, in patience, and in human creativity. No AI in the galaxy could predict the ingenuity of a human mind operating under pressure. In the research labs, scientists refined every system. Shields were strengthened, engines optimized, and weapons honed for precision. A tiny miscalculation could cost thousands of lives in the coming battles, but no error would go uncorrected. Human persistence was relentless. Every problem solved, every challenge met, added to the invisible weight of confidence that would soon travel with them into space. Commander Lyra Kane stood before a large holographic map of the galaxy, the stars twinkling against the darkness like distant diamonds. She traced her fingers over the clusters of enemy fleets, noting the Zetherians' positions, patrol routes, and command structures. "They think we are weak," she murmured to her aide, "but we have patience, we have strategy, and above all, we have each other. That is something they will never understand." The young aide nodded, eyes wide with both fear and admiration. "It's more than strategy, Commander. It's hope. The whole fleet carries hope with it." Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "Yes," she said softly. "Hope is a weapon they cannot see coming, and it will guide us when all else fails." Outside the shipyards, Earth continued its life. Cities thrived under neon lights and endless traffic, unaware of the intricate dance happening in orbit above them. Farmers tended their fields, children played in parks, and workers carried on with daily routines. And yet above all, satellites and orbital stations were watching the skies, quietly scanning for any sign of alien aggression. Humanity moved with purpose, but also with patience. They had learned that preparation, not panic, was the key to survival. The lower decks of the Hopebringer, mechanics worked tirelessly on engines that would soon propel the fleet across light years of space. Each component was polished, tested, and refined. Sparks from welding arcs illuminated faces tired but determined, faces that bore the pride of creation. These were the hands that had built hope. These were the hands that would carry humanity's will into battle. Admiral Verma paused near a group of young engineers. "Every ship in this fleet is more than metal and circuits," he said. "It carries the spirit of those who built it. It carries the courage of those who will pilot it. And it carries the pride of every human being alive on Earth. Remember that, and nothing will seem impossible." A young woman, barely 19, looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "I never thought I'd feel this proud, sir. To be part of something bigger than myself." Verma smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "That is what makes us human. Courage is not just born in battle. It is born in the choice to stand and do what is right, even when fear is heavy in your chest." The fleet's design was a testament to human ingenuity. Ships were sleek and agile, capable of maneuvering through asteroid fields and enemy formations alike. Smaller crafts were built for precision strikes, while larger vessels carried shields that could absorb and redirect immense energy. Weapons were designed not only to destroy, but to outthink the enemy, striking in patterns the galaxy had never seen. As the weeks passed, training intensified. Pilots worked in pairs, learning each other's patterns, forming bonds that went beyond camaraderie. Each member of the fleet knew that their survival depended not just on individual skill, but on trust. The fleet became a living organism, a single mind acting in unison, driven by the same heartbeat: humanity's refusal to be mocked. In quiet moments, Lyra walked the observation decks, gazing out at the endless stars. She thought of Earth below, a fragile planet teeming with life, unaware of the coming storm. She thought of her crew, young men and women who had trusted her guidance, and of the engineers whose hands had shaped every ship in the fleet. A deep sense of responsibility settled in her chest. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting to prove the galaxy wrong. In these moments of solitude, Lyra allowed herself to imagine the reactions of the alien powers when the fleet finally moved. She imagined their shock, their confusion, and then the dawning realization that Earth was not a helpless planet to be dismissed. She imagined the Zetherian leader's face, frozen in disbelief, as human ships danced through the void with calculated precision and unstoppable courage. Every human being involved in the preparations felt this sense of purpose. The bond between those on Earth and those in orbit was intangible, but unbreakable. The engineers, the pilots, the scientists, the leaders, all were connected by a shared vision that humanity would rise, that mockery would turn to awe, and that the galaxy would remember Earth not as a weakling, but as a force of resilience and determination. Finally, the day came when the fleet was ready. Thousands of ships, from small, agile scouts to massive capital ships, gleamed in the sunlight reflected off nearby asteroids. Lyra stood on the bridge of the Hopebringer, surrounded by her command officers. Her hand rested lightly on the console, but her mind was sharp, racing through every strategy, every contingency. Admiral Verma entered the bridge, his presence commanding attention without effort. "The galaxy believes we are helpless," he said, voice steady. "Let them believe. When we leave this system, we will show them that hope, courage, and ingenuity are more powerful than any mockery. This fleet carries more than firepower. It carries the spirit of humanity, and that, Commander, is unstoppable." Lyra nodded. "We leave at dawn," she said. "Let the stars watch, because when we move, the galaxy will finally see the truth." As the sun rose over Earth, its rays reflected across oceans, mountains, and deserts, touching cities and forests alike. Humanity stirred beneath the light, unaware that a moment of history was about to unfold above them. The stars, once silent, seemed to listen as the fleet began its final preparations. In the hearts of every human on those ships, there was a quiet certainty. They were no longer helpless. And far in the distance, beyond the edges of known space, alien eyes scanned the void, unaware that the storm was ready. The galaxy had mocked Earth, called it weak and insignificant, and laughed at its small fleets and fragile planets. But humanity had waited, prepared, and learned. And now, the time was almost at hand to turn mockery into silence. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the moment when the human fleet would step into the void and show the galaxy that Earth was not helpless. That humanity had arrived, and when that moment came, the galaxy would never be the same. The void was quiet before the storm. Beyond the solar system, human ships drifted silently, their sleek forms reflecting distant starlight. Pilots and crew knew this stillness was only a momentary calm before chaos. Every sensor, every scanner, every alert system hummed softly with tension. The galaxy had watched humanity for centuries and mocked them, but now, for the first time, the humans were moving, and the universe would notice. Commander Lyra Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship Hopebringer, eyes fixed on the holographic display of the surrounding space. Hundreds of blips appeared on the screen. Enemy scouts, Zetherian patrols, and ships that had assumed Earth's fleet would cower in the shadows. They had counted humans as weak, slow, and unprepared. They had not considered determination, ingenuity, or the stubbornness of a species that refused to be dismissed. Admiral Rakesh Verma's voice cut through the quiet hum. "All units, prepare for engagement. Remember your training, trust your instincts, and above all, trust each other. The Zetherians think we are small, fragile, and helpless. Let's show them how wrong they are." Pilots gripped their controls, breath held, hearts pounding. Many had trained their whole lives for this moment. Some had never seen a battle outside simulations. Yet fear was not absence. It was energy, sharpened into focus. Every human in the fleet felt it. Every human understood the stakes. This was more than survival. It was proof that Earth had a place in the galaxy. The first Exitherian scouts appeared, sleek ships glinting with alien metal, moving in patterns that seemed designed to intimidate. Their weapons glowed with a cold, blue energy, aimed not just to destroy, but to terrify. The scouts laughed in alien tones, believing the humans would falter, believing they were superior. Lyra's hands moved swiftly across the console, coordinating the fleet's formations. "Divide and flank," she ordered. "Lure them toward the asteroid field. Keep them inside our kill zones." The humans moved as one. Small fighters darted through the void like swarms of lightning, while larger vessels held position, shields shimmering in anticipation. The Zetherians, confident and arrogant, fell into the trap. Explosions erupted as human missiles and precision weapons struck, hitting systems that alien technology considered untouchable. Ships vanished from the sensors, not in great fiery blasts, but in quiet, precise removals that left the remaining enemy stunned. "Target the lead cruiser!" one young pilot shouted, voice shaking with excitement. "Hit it with everything!" Lyra watched the engagement, her pulse steady, but her mind racing. Every move had been calculated, yet the chaos of battle was unpredictable. Human intuition, creativity, and improvisation guided them through. Where the Zetherians relied on sheer firepower and rigid tactics, humans adapted. Ships split, merged, and maneuvered in ways that alien commanders could not anticipate. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. The first wave of Zetherian forces faltered. Their pride and overconfidence became their weakness. One by one, their scouts fell into traps, their larger ships misaligned in the chaos, and their formations broken. The humans had not only survived, they had gained the upper hand. Yet the victory came with a cost. Small cruisers were damaged, fighters were lost, and human crews felt the sting of failure even in triumph. Lyra watched as some of her pilots, faces pale but determined, reported system damage and casualties. Each loss was a reminder of the stakes, a reminder that survival demanded courage, sacrifice, and unity. Despite the chaos, the silence of the void after each strike was deafening. Enemy ships that had once mocked humanity now hesitated, scanning, for threats they could not predict. They whispered to each other in alien tones, confused, afraid. How can they do this?" one Zetherian commander asked, trembling. "This should be impossible." Lyra allowed herself a small breath. "We are not impossible," she whispered to herself. "We are human." Back on the Hopebringer, engineers worked tirelessly, repairing damage and rerouting power. Pilots adjusted tactics based on real-time feedback, communicating with each other through quick, efficient bursts over secure channels. Every human in the fleet was connected, moving as if their collective mind had become one entity. The Zetherians, relying on rigid hierarchy and assumptions, could not keep up. In the midst of the battle, a young pilot named Kale shot past Lyra's viewport in his fighter, weaving through enemy fire with precise agility. His heart raced, but he felt a strange exhilaration, a sense that he was part of something larger than himself. "For Earth!" he shouted over the comm, firing a salvo that disabled an enemy cruiser. Lyra smiled faintly, seeing his courage, mirrored in thousands of others. It was not just technology that won battles. It was spirit, human spirit. It was hope and defiance, creativity and courage, all combined into a force that no alien arrogance could measure. As the first clash drew to a close, the battlefield fell silent again. But this silence was different. It was not emptiness. It was realization. The Zetherians, who had once mocked humanity, now hesitated. They had underestimated a species that refused to be dismissed. The humans had fought with precision, strategy, and unshakable unity. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Lyra surveyed the remaining enemy forces. Many were retreating, confused and afraid. Some sent desperate calls, but their words were drowned out by the confidence of the human fleet. The human ships floated among the wreckage of alien vessels, engines humming softly, shields flickering but intact. Humanity had proven its capability. Humanity had shown that it would not bow to mockery. Yet Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The Zetherians' main fleet had not yet arrived. The battles to come would be larger, fiercer, and more dangerous. But the first clash had changed the perception of Earth. The galaxy had begun to listen. The mockery that once echoed across the stars had been replaced with hesitation. Fear was beginning to take root. In the quiet moments that followed, the crew of the Hopebringer tended to the wounded, repaired damaged systems, and recounted their victories. Amid the exhaustion, a sense of pride and unity spread. They had faced the impossible and proven that humans were not helpless. They had faced the mockery of a galaxy and responded with action, precision, and courage. Lyra walked the deck, passing by her pilots and engineers. "This is only the beginning," she said, her voice calm but firm. "They will return. The next wave will be stronger. But remember this moment. Remember what we did together. Remember that the galaxy underestimated us, and we showed them the truth. Humanity is not small. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is unstoppable when it moves as one." As the fleet regrouped, the stars outside the viewport seemed to shimmer differently, as if acknowledging the human spirit that had ignited among them. Somewhere, far in the reaches of space, alien eyes scanned the void, confused and fearful. The whispers of mockery that had once traveled across the galaxy were silenced, replaced with tension and respect. For the first time, the humans felt it. Not just the satisfaction of victory, but the knowledge that they had begun to change the story of Earth. The story that the galaxy had written for them as weak, helpless, and insignificant was being rewritten with every ship, every maneuver, every act of courage. And the galaxy was watching, unprepared for what was coming next. Lyra stood at the bridge, looking out into the darkness. "They thought we were weak," she said softly, almost to herself. "But we are ready. And when the next wave comes, we will remind them why humanity cannot be mocked." The void was still again, but this time it was filled with something new. The quiet hum of human engines, the faint glow of determination, and the undeniable presence of a species that refused to bow. The first clash had been won. The galaxy had been shaken, and Earth's fleet was only beginning to move. The stars themselves seemed to lean in, witnessing the rise of a people who had been underestimated, mocked, and dismissed. The humans of Earth had arrived, and the galaxy would never forget their defiance. The Zetherian command fleet had arrived. From the black expanse of space, colossal warships emerged, their jagged hulls glowing with cold energy. Thousands of vessels, far larger than the scouting fleets humanity had faced before, formed a terrifying wall across the void. Their leader, the crystalline warlord who had mocked Earth, moved among them, confident that the humans would crumble before their might. But the humans were ready. The fleet of Earth, though smaller in number, moved with precision, coordination, and an unshakable will. Every ship, every pilot, every crew member knew their purpose. This was no longer a skirmish. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Commander Lyra Kane stood on the bridge of the Hopebringer, watching the alien fleet through the massive observation viewport. She traced their formations with her fingers, noting weaknesses that only human intuition could find. "We will not retreat. she said quietly, though her voice carried through the command room. We will not falter. We fight not just for Earth, but for every being who has believed in us. Today, they will learn what it means to underestimate humanity. Admiral Rakesh Verma entered beside her, a steady presence amidst the tension. Their arrogance blinds them, he said. We will use it. Every flaw they hide in pride will become our advantage. Trust in your crew, Commander. Trust in humanity. Lyra nodded. The fleet's formation shifted, moving like a living organism. Smaller ships darted ahead to lure the Zetherians into prepared zones. Heavily armed cruisers took defensive positions, shields glowing against the incoming energy of alien weaponry. And at the center, the Hopebringer carried the command team, ready to coordinate every maneuver. The first salvo erupted like a storm. Zetherian energy blasts streaked across space, striking shields and hulls. Explosions painted the darkness in fiery streaks, lighting the void with the chaos of war. Human ships weaved through the barrage, using agility and precision to dodge where brute force failed. "Hold formation!" Lyra commanded, voice calm, cutting through panic. "We attack as one!" The human fleet struck with synchronized precision. Small fighters flanked the enemy vessels, launching missiles and precision lasers into exposed weak points. Larger cruisers fired in unison, each shot calculated to disrupt energy shields and engines. The Zetherians had relied on size and firepower, but they had underestimated human strategy, adaptability, and creativity. In the chaos, human ingenuity shone. Pilots improvised, creating unpredictable patterns of attack that threw alien formations into disarray. Engineers rerouted power to shields and weapons on the fly, keeping ships operational even under sustained fire. Every human on board knew the cost of failure, yet none hesitated. Courage ran through the fleet like electricity, connecting them, in a way alien logic could not understand. Lyra's eyes scanned the battlefield, tracking the enemy flagship at the center of the Zetherian fleet. The crystalline warlord sat within, watching the humans fight, his confidence slowly giving way to confusion. "Impossible," he murmured. "How can they move like this? How can they fight with such precision?" "Target the flagship!" shouted Kale, a young pilot who had distinguished himself in the first clash. "If we take it down, their fleet will fall apart." Lyra's fingers danced across the console. "Flank from the asteroids," she ordered. "Use every fighter." "Hit them simultaneously. Timing is everything." Human fighters shot into the gaps between massive alien ships, weaving through debris and energy blasts. Missiles streaked across space, striking the flagship's shields in perfect synchronization. Explosions rocked the alien vessel. But the humans were relentless, pressing the attack until the flagship's systems began to fail. The Zetherian leader roared in frustration, commanding his ships to counterattack. Energy waves surged, tearing through smaller human vessels. Some were destroyed, leaving silence where once courage had thrived. Yet the humans did not break. Each loss became motivation, each sacrifice fueling the determination of those who remained. "Push forward," Lyra cried, voice carrying a fierce calm. "For Earth, for humanity, we are not helpless." And then it happened. The flagship, massive and arrogant, faltered under the coordinated assault. Its shields collapsed in a blinding flash of light. Engines erupted, and it vanished in a controlled chain reaction. The remaining Zetherian fleet froze, their leader's pride, their confidence, shattered. In that moment, the tide of battle shifted. Alien ships, once confident in their superiority, began to retreat. Smaller units broke formation, fleeing the precision and resolve of the humans. The void was alive with the hum of human engines and the roar of victory. The mockery that had once echoed across the galaxy was replaced with awe and fear. Lyra allowed herself a brief moment to breathe, scanning the fleet and the stars beyond. "They underestimated us," she whispered. "And now they will see. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not small. Humanity is unstoppable when it fights together. Admiral Verma placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression proud but solemn. This victory is only the beginning, he said. The galaxy has been shaken. They will remember today, but we must remain vigilant. Our fight is not over. The crew of the Hopebringer and the entire fleet worked tirelessly to regroup. Damage was assessed, systems repaired, and wounded tended to. Yet despite exhaustion, a sense of pride and unity pervaded every ship. Humanity had faced an overwhelming force and emerged victorious. They had turned mockery into silence, proving that courage, ingenuity, and determination could outweigh sheer size and strength. Lyra walked among the crew, observing the exhaustion and relief etched into every face. Engineers, pilots, and medics moved with quiet determination, knowing the battle had been won, but the war was not over. "Remember this moment," she said softly. "Remember that together we can achieve the impossible. This is what it means to be human." The stars outside seemed to shimmer with a new light, reflecting the human spirit that burned brighter than ever. Somewhere in the void, the alien fleets trembled, realizing that Earth was no longer a target to be mocked, but a force to be respected. In the silence that followed, Lyra allowed herself one thought. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. But humans had waited, prepared, and learned. And now, with the fleet's victory and the Zetherians in retreat, the galaxy would understand a simple truth. Underestimating Earth was the gravest mistake one could make. As the fleet moved forward, regrouping and preparing for the battles yet to come, the stars themselves seemed to lean in, bearing witness to the rise of a species that refused to bow. Humanity had proven its strength, but more importantly, it had proven its will. And in the vast, indifferent void of the galaxy, that will was now undeniable. The turning point had arrived. The humans of Earth had faced the greatest alien fleet in known space and emerged victorious. The galaxy had been silenced. And somewhere deep in the void, the Zetherian leader realized that the story he had written for Earth, one of mockery and dismissal, was over. A new chapter had begun. One that belonged to humanity. The void was quiet. Not the tense, waiting kind of quiet before battle, but a different kind, an almost sacred silence that stretched across the shattered battlefield. Human ships drifted among the wreckage of alien vessels, their engines humming, softly shields flickering as crews assessed damage. The Zetherian command fleet had been broken. Their arrogance had shattered like glass, and Earth had proven what it had always known. Humanity was not helpless. Commander Lyra Kane stood on the bridge of the Hopebringer, her hands resting lightly on the console. Outside the massive viewport, stars stretched endlessly, indifferent and beautiful. She let her gaze linger on the distant planets, imagining the people who had no idea what was happening above them. Cities glimmered with sunlight, forests and oceans sparkled, and children played under the same sky that had once seemed so small and fragile. Earth was safe, for now. The crew moved around her, tending to repairs and communicating quietly over the comms. Young pilots who had faced their first real battle walked past, their faces pale, eyes wide with the raw thrill of survival. They were heroes, though they didn't call themselves that. Engineers patched hulls and rerouted power, medics cared for the wounded, and every human aboard felt the weight of victory and the cost it demanded. Admiral Rakesh Verma approached. Lyra, his presence calm but commanding. "The galaxy has been silent since the flagship fell," he said. "They expected weakness, mockery, perhaps even surrender. But we have given them something they were not prepared for: truth. Humanity is not small. Humanity is not helpless. Humanity endures." Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the fleet. "And yet," she said softly. They will remember today. Not just as a battle won, but as a warning. A reminder that mocking a species that fights together is dangerous. The aftermath of the battle was both beautiful and haunting. Wreckage of alien ships floated among the stars, silent monuments to the cost of arrogance. Energy flickered where shields had failed, and in the distance, some surviving Zetherian ships retreated, carrying with them the knowledge that they had underestimated humans. Every human pilot, every crew member, felt a surge of pride, but also a solemn respect for the lives lost. Courage had a cost. Hope had a price. In the midst of the quiet, Kyle, the young pilot who had distinguished himself in both battles, walked up to Lyra. His face was streaked with sweat and soot, but his eyes burned with a mixture of awe and determination. "Commander," he said, voice trembling, "we did it. We really did it." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "We did not just fight," she said. "We showed the galaxy who we are. And every life we honor today is part of that message. Humanity is alive. Humanity is strong. And humanity will not bow to mockery." Back on Earth, news began to filter through communications channels. The message of human victory traveled faster than light across the planets and colonies. Citizens listened in awe, some refusing to believe at first, thinking it too good to be true. But as confirmation arrived, silence turned into celebration. People cheered, cried, and hugged one another, understanding that this moment was more than a battle. It was proof that Earth's children could face any challenge and survive. In orbit above Earth, the fleet began to reorganize. Damaged ships were repaired, shields restored, and weapons recalibrated. The humans moved with deliberate efficiency, not arrogance, but with confidence. They knew the galaxy had changed its perception of them. They were no longer weak. They were no longer mocked. And somewhere deep in the void, alien fleets watched, unsure of how to respond. Lyra walked along the observation deck, watching stars shift in the endless darkness. She thought of her crew, of the engineers who had labored for months, of the pilots who had risked everything, and of every human who had believed in their strength even when the galaxy laughed. She felt a deep swell of emotion. Pride, sorrow, love and hope all mingled together. Humanity had endured. Humanity had proven itself. Admiral Verma joined her, his gaze following hers out into the void. "They will speak of this battle for centuries," he said. "Legends will grow around Earth's fleet. But more than that, they will remember that even a planet thought helpless can rise with courage, intelligence, and unity." Lyra nodded, thinking of the countless lives behind every ship, every weapon, every system. "We were never helpless," she whispered. "We only had to show it." In the silent expanse, alien survivors transmitted messages back to their worlds. Reports were filled with confusion, fear, and reluctant respect. They had faced the unexpected, the unpredicted, and the impossible. The humans had fought not with brute force alone, but with creativity, strategy, and unwavering spirit. Every loss had been met with courage. Every strike had been precise. Every human had proven that even the smallest planet could produce a force the galaxy could not ignore. The stars seemed to hold their breath as human ships formed a final, coordinated formation. Pilots saluted their fallen comrades. Engineers nodded to one another, and every member of the fleet felt the quiet satisfaction of duty fulfilled. But they also felt anticipation. The galaxy was vast, and threats would come again. Still, for this moment, humanity had won. Lyra stepped onto the bridge, hands resting on the console, and looked across her crew. Young and old, seasoned and new, they all shared one truth. They had proven themselves. "We leave a message for the galaxy today," she said. not just of strength, but of resilience, of unity, of courage. Let them remember that when they underestimate Earth, they invite their own silence. A soft cheer rose among the bridge crew. It was quiet, restrained, but full of emotion. No one laughed. No one mocked. They had faced terror, had danced with death in the void, and emerged stronger. That quiet celebration was more powerful than any victory shout. It was acknowledgement of truth. Humanity had arrived, and far across the galaxy, in distant systems where humans had once been dismissed as irrelevant, that message traveled. Silence followed the transmission. Not mocking silence, not empty silence, but the heavy quiet of awe. Alien civilizations paused, reconsidered, and for the first time, truly respected humanity. On the observation deck, Lyra turned to Admiral Verma. "We've changed the story of Earth," she said softly. "Not with words, not with threats, but with action. And the galaxy will never forget it." Verma smiled, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "We have done more than survive," he said. "We have reminded the universe that courage, unity, and determination are forces no enemy can predict. The Zetherians mocked us, but they will not forget us, and neither will any who witness our resolve." Lyra took a deep breath, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy had been humbled. The mockery, the whispers of helplessness had vanished. What remained was respect, caution, and the undeniable presence of a species that refused to bow. Humanity had risen. Humanity had fought. Humanity had won. And in the endless silence of space, the echoes of that victory lingered, carrying a clear message across the stars. Earth was no longer to be underestimated. Humans were no longer to be mocked. The galaxy had learned that when humanity arrived, silence was the only proper response. The void was still, but it was filled now with something new: awe, respect, and the quiet knowledge that humanity had claimed its place among the stars. Commander Lyra Kane turned back to her fleet, to the humans who had fought, sacrificed, and survived, and whispered one final thought: "We were never helpless, and we never will be." The stars seemed to shine brighter that night, reflecting the pride, courage, and determination of Earth's children. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would remember.